Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Joe Morgan Day at Great American Ballpark. At this time, please welcome today's MC in his 40th season as the voice of the Reds, Hall of Famer, Marty Brennaman.
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Great American Ballpark. As Joe said, this is truly a very, very special day. And it is my distinct honor to be with you here today as we celebrate Joe's Day at Great American Ballpark, saluting, without any question, one of Cincinnati's greatest sports icons. Today's event really is a pinnacle of distinction in a baseball player's career. It's hard to imagine a smaller fraternity in baseball than the group who has received a statue representing them outside the ballpark in which their former team plays. Cities across the major leagues have bestowed this honor upon the truly great players in their team's history, such as Stan Musial in St. Louis, George Brett in Kansas City, Ernie Banks in Chicago, and of course Jackie Robinson in New York, just to name a few. And Reds fans are undoubtedly familiar with a select group of players who have received this honor at Great American Ballpark, a fraternity which adds a new member today with one of the greatest second basemen in Major League Baseball history, Joe Morgan. As we get started, let us first take a moment to welcome and recognize a special guest joining us on the field already. And that will lead up to a very special introduction of the greatest starting lineup in Cincinnati Reds franchise history. Guests, as we welcome you, please stand and be recognized by this great crowd. Our first group has helped make today's event possible with their incredibly generous donations to the Reds Hall of Fame and Joe Morgan's Sculpture Project. I ask that the following group all stand at this time: Greg Bush, Steph Bush, Tim Bush, Terry Ramstetter, Thomas Tull, Teresa Tracy, Jim Tracy, Jane and Bob Crotty. Fans, please join the Reds organization and the Reds Hall of Fame in thanking these donors with your great round of applause. Next, we'd like to welcome some of the special guests of the Reds Hall of Fame, the Reds front office and Reds ownership, starting with world-renowned sculptor and creator of the 6 statues outside the ballpark, including the newly dedicated Joe Morgan sculpture, Tom Tuchia. Tom? From the Reds clubhouse, senior clubhouse manager Bernie Stowe. Bernie? A former Reds second baseman and a teammate of Joe Morgan, now heavily involved with the annual Reds Fantasy Camp. Please welcome Doug Flynn. A very distinguished guest from Cooperstown, New York. He's the president of the National Baseball Hall of Fame, Jeff Idelson. Reds Hall of Fame board president, Jeff Smith. Jeff? Reds Hall of Fame executive director, Mr. Rick Walls. Major donors and contributors to the Reds Hall of Fame, we welcome Reds chairman Joe Williams. And finally, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Reds, Mr. Bob Castellini and his wife, Susie. Seated in our front row to my right are members of Joe's inner circle, so to speak, who have been with him every step of the way in his career leading up to today's monumental achievement. We welcome Joe's close friends, Tom Rich and Bill Patterson, along with former teammate with the Houston Astros, Enos Cabell, and National Basketball Hall of Famer, the Big O, Oscar Robertson. Joe's sisters, Patricia Thompson and Linda Taylor. Joe's brothers, Jimmy Morgan and David Morgan. Joe's children, Lisa, Angela, Kelly, and Ashley. And finally, last but certainly not least, his lovely wife, Teresa. And now, folks, it's time for a very special moment. And I have the pleasure of introducing to you the best starting lineup in Reds franchise history. And Major League history, for that matter. The lineup I'm about to announce was the same primary lineup used during the historic 1975 and 1976 seasons. Although we're going to do it in reverse batting order. Are we ready? All right. Few could rival the defensive prowess of this big red machine great during his 9 seasons with the ball club, which saw him win 4 consecutive Gold Gloves from 1974 to 1977, a 2000 inductee into the Reds Hall of Fame. They called him the Chief, center fielder Cesar Geronimo. This player was a 3-time All-Star for the Big Red Machine, who hit over 300 in his career as a Cincinnati Red. Blessed with a strong arm to go along with great speed, he finished his Reds career with over 1,200 hits. He's a 2004 Reds Hall of Fame inductee, right fielder Ken Griffey. Considered one of the best middle infielders in the history of this great game, this player was a 9-time All-Star, as well as a winner of 5 Gold Gloves during his 19 seasons, all of which were spent right here in Cincinnati. He also had over 2,300 hits in his big league career. Inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame in 2000, shortstop Davey Concepcion. One of the Big Red Machine's most powerful offensive threats, he led the league in RBIs for 3 straight seasons, 76, 77, and 78. And in home runs for 2 seasons, in 77 and 78. He was a 1977 National League MVP, a 2003 Reds Hall of Fame inductee, the left fielder, George Foster. This man was commonly referred to as the glue of the Big Red Machine. He was also affectionately known as Big Doggy. In this 23 seasons, he was an All-Star 7 times. He had 379 home runs to go along with an astounding 1,652 RBIs. Inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame in 1998. Inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in the year 2000. First baseman, Tony Perez. simply put, he was the greatest catcher of all time. He played in 17 historic Major League seasons, all with Cincinnati. Awards and accolades fill his mantle, including being named Rookie of the Year, 14 times an All-Star, 10 Gold Glove Awards, and 2 National League MVPs. He was inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame in 1986 and the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1989. The catcher, Johnny Bench. The greatest hitter of all time. He was a Cincinnati Red for 19 seasons, amassing 4,256 hits in his career, including 17 All-Star games, 3 World Championships, and the 1973 National League MVP award. The third baseman, Pete Rose. Finally, he's statistically in a class of his own as a middle infielder. A 10-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glove winner. He also is the club's modern-era stolen base leader and compiled 2 of the greatest seasons in Major League Baseball history when he won the National League MVP awards in 1975 and 1976. Inducted into the Reds Hall in 1987, the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1990. He's the reason we are all gathered here today. The second baseman, Joe Morgan. Fans, no moment with this collection of players would be complete without also hearing from the man who helped lead them. For that, we ask that everyone turn their attention to the video board for a very special video.
75 was a great moment in baseball history because it was a moment of a bunch of guys that played absolutely together, and they never played apart. And when you get guys that do that, you're gonna win. And that's what they did. They just overran people because they played together so well. And they had no animosity about being a star, or this or that, or anything other than just winning, and that's what they did.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. With that, gentlemen of the Great Eight, please take your seats. Fans, a few hours ago, on the corner of Crosley Terrace entrance to Great American Ballpark, our beloved number 8, Joe Morgan, made history once again, becoming just the 6th player in Reds franchise history to be honored with a bronze likeness. This statue will become let me correct that. This sculpture will become an iconic symbol of Great American Ballpark, which will greet fans of all generations, young and old, for decades to come. Before we go any further, let's turn our attention back to the video board for a recap of today's dedication ceremony. Take a look.
Earlier today, outside of Great American Ballpark, the Cincinnati Reds and the Reds Hall of Fame and Museum dedicated the 5th in a series of statues commemorating the legendary players of the franchise's storied history. Joining the likes of catcher Ernie Lombardi, pitcher Joe Nuxhall, first baseman Ted Kluszewski, outfielder Frank Robinson, and catcher Johnny Bench will be second baseman and National Baseball Hall of Famer Joe Morgan. Joe's bronze likeness is positioned at the corner of Joe Nuxhall Way and 2nd Street at the corner of Great American Ballpark, facing downtown Cincinnati. It will serve as the point where the ballpark property starts for visiting fans and appropriately displays Joe and his legendary takeoff as he heads towards stealing second base following a big lead off first. Joining Joe at today's ceremony were members of his family, teammates from the years, donors to the campaign to build this important statue, dignitaries from the city and Reds ownership, and of course, thousands and thousands of die-hard Reds fans. Great American Ballpark is where the Cincinnati Reds, past and present, comes together. Millions of fans from throughout Reds country will attend games here each and every year to cherish moments with their families and celebrate the winning tradition of Reds baseball. Now, with the statue unveiling that took place today, they'll be able to relive all the great moments that one of their heroes provided while paying tribute to one of the greatest second basemen who ever played in the major leagues. Number 8 for the Cincinnati Reds, Joe Morgan.
There have been 21 chief executive officers in the long and storied history of the Cincinnati Reds. And some might say that the 1970s was the pinnacle of Reds leadership, when the team was led by the late, great Bob Hausum as part of the Nippert family ownership. Mr. Hausum and the Nippert ownership were responsible for steering the franchise during the formidable Big Red Machine years. Nowadays, as the Reds franchise heads back to prominence in the National League with 2 division championships in the past 3 seasons, the franchise has returned to a business model of improving fan experience both on and off the field while giving back to this community. Coming up here to the podium now to say a few words about Joe Morgan on behalf of a grateful franchise and its fans, my honor to welcome to the stage the president and the chief executive officer of the Cincinnati Reds, Mr. Bob Castellini.
Thank you, Marty. The Big Red Machine was a phenomenon that to this day is cited as perhaps the greatest team ever assembled. Bench, Perez, Morgan, Geronimo, Griffey, Concepcion, and Foster became household names, each playing at his best under Sparky Anderson, and when united as a team, they were unstoppable. You ask these players, who amongst them made them great? And you hear resoundingly one name, Joe Morgan. This master of second base never settled for being second at anything. Joe's statistics stand as testimony to his expertise in every aspect of the game of baseball. He was a machine unto himself, with relentless focus and an insatiable hunger to win. But Joe understood that players cannot be great independent of the bigger machine. In fact, Joe, like Johnny, only agreed to have sculptures erected in their likeness if we honored their teammates as well. So we're here today thrilled to have reunited our beloved Big Red Machine as part of our tribute to their iconic second baseman, Joe Morgan. Joe, the highest honors given to baseball players have been bestowed upon you, but we know that today tops them all. You are now a permanent presence at the home of the Reds. Standing ever ready to steal the next base, to advance our team and get us a win. We can think of no one finer than you, Joe Morgan, to make the first impression on our visitors as they visit the ballpark. One look at you, leaning into your steel, will guarantee everyone knows we play here to win. On behalf of the Cincinnati Reds and our fans, please accept this sculpture as our thank you for being the best teammate on this best of teams to ever play the game. As a thank you for the wisdom you continue to impart on our current and future players, and as a thank you for the moment of pure joy we've had watching you play this game we love, you are the little guy with the big heart who not only knew he could, but also knew he could carry our hopes and dreams along with him. You are forevermore our great number 8.
As everyone is well aware, the list of on-field accomplishments during Joe's Hall of Fame career goes on and on and on. He was not the prototypical second baseman of his day. That's because he was establishing the prototype for future players at that position. The best second baseman in the league today strive to achieve what Joe accomplished in his major league career. Of course, we can look at the numbers and see the greatness that was second baseman Joe Morgan, but it's perhaps more fun to again watch the highlight reel.
When the Reds got Joe Morgan on that trade for the start the Big Red Machine, he was the real, in my opinion, the guy that made that thing go.
I always tell people that Joe Morgan was an all-star when I played with him in Houston, but when he came to Cincinnati, he became a Hall of Famer.
He was a leader. He was one of these guys that just got in your face, and you knew he was determined to be the best.
Joe Morgan was probably the finest player that I've ever played with as far as being able to win a ball game. He had the ability to get a walk, steal a base, and he had the ability to get the big hit, and he had the ability to hit the ball out of the ballpark. He was such a amazing weapon, I guess you might say, in a sense of winning ball games. He had such an intensity, he had such knowledge of the game.
And I think he really brought the offensive speed side to second base. His defense was, even though he won Gold Gloves, he was kind of an underrated defensive second baseman. But to really watch him perform, he played bigger than his stature all the time.
I tell people I think he's the greatest second baseman in the history of baseball. I got to play with him. There's no question in my mind he's the most intelligent player I ever played with. And the good thing about Joe Morgan is You know, he used to steal bases when he meant something. And I never seen a guy like Joe Morgan. If we're 1 run down in the 8th or 9th inning, and he gets on first, everybody at the ballpark, everybody in the opposing dugout, everybody on the field, everybody watching on TV or listening on radio knew he was going to steal a base, and he would steal it.
I told him when we got him, after talking with him for a while, I said, I'm going to try something with you because I believe what I see in you is correct. I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to play you without ever giving you a sign until you prove me different. You never proved me different. There's no other second baseman ever in the history of this game could ever do the things he could do, and never will.
Folks, without further ado, please welcome one of the great second basemen in Major League Baseball history, a man that I'm truly honored to call my friend. Number 8, Joe Morgan.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I always thought the toughest speech I would ever have to make was when I was inducted into Cooperstown. I was thinking that was the toughest because I was talking with great players behind me: Ted Williams, Stan Musial, Johnny Bench, Willie Stargell. And I was talking to baseball fans in front of me. And I thought that was difficult. Well, I have to tell you, today is the toughest speech I've ever had to make. And that's because I'm talking with the greatest group of players that have ever played the game on one side. And I'm speaking to Big Red Machine fans here today. I actually been thinking about this speech, obviously, for a long time, but I got relieved last night when the Great 8 was introduced on the field, and my best friend, Pete Rose, shed a tear. That took the pressure off of me. I really want to say that when I got here in 1972, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't realize that I was going to be a part of something that was great. You have to remember I played in Houston for 7 years, and our biggest accomplishment was staying out of last place, beating the New York Mets. But I got here in 1972. Johnny Bench won the Most Valuable Player Award. I won one in 75 and 76. Johnny Bench was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. I was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Johnny Bench was been elected to the Reds Hall of Fame. I was elected to the Reds Hall of Fame. Johnny Bench has a statue erected of him out here. Now I have one. I guess the question is, Johnny, what's next? But I'm very pleased for another reason. I think it's only fitting that we're playing the Dodgers, because during those years, the Dodgers were our chief rival. And a guy over there that I have a lot of respect for, he's standing there, I'm glad he's there, Davey Lopes. I had to make a speech this morning in front of the statue, the sculpture, my sculpture, bench statue. So I'm going to try to make this quick. You guys have always treated me with the utmost respect. I'll never forget, I came here to broadcast the game once, and they showed a picture of me on the screen, and you gave me a standing ovation. I will never, ever forget that. I have one more favor to ask. Anytime you see the statue out there of Johnny Bench, or you walk by my sculpture, all right, they want me to tell you the difference between a sculpture and a statue. All right, a statue is when you're sitting there like this. A sculpture is when you have movement. But anytime you pass my sculpture, I would hope that you would not only think of Joe Morgan, but you'll think of all the great players who helped to make that statue possible. Long live the Big Red Machine.